Happy Tuesday. Welcome to my Instagram live show called The Third Phase. I'm so happy you're here. I am Lori Carpenter, interior designer and founder of The Third Phase. And I go live each and every Tuesday on Instagram where I interview inspiring guests about things that matter most to us in this third phase. And if you're 60 plus, you may be like me, dealing with all the aspects that the third phase has to offer. But more importantly, we talk about things that mean so much to us, like our home, health, wealth. So today I have a very inspiring guest with me today. Her name is Mallory Moreno. Mallory is an elder attorney, and she is very well known in the industry. She's in Illinois, but she is a principal in the Elder Law Estate and Trust Administration and Litigations, Estate Planning, Asset Protection Practices, and is a CELA, Certified Elder Law Attorney, exclusive honors bestowed on a select group of attorneys. As a matter of fact, there are only 13 CELAs in Illinois. So she provides creative solutions for clients that are faced with elder law issues, and her practice really focuses on estate planning, adult guardianship, all the things that go along with that. So let me invite Mallory on with us today. See, Mallory, are you there?
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Great. Yes, I can hear you great. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Well, great. I am very honored to have you with us today. Um, Mallory, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So thank you for the introduction. I was watching along, so I
Oh,
really
good,
appreciate
good,
it.
good. But is there
Um,
something that needs to be added?
you know what? I think you did a great job. I think you mentioned this, but I lead our elder law practice group at my firm Chuhak and Texan, and we are in downtown Chicago. And I have been practicing in elder law my entire practice as an attorney. And so I kind of define elder law pretty broadly, but you also mentioned the CELA
Uh-huh.
certification. It's administered by the National Elder Law Foundation. So there are CELAs in, I believe, all 50 states. So you probably have some there in Arkansas as well. In fact, I know you do because I know a few of them. But
Oh, great.
there are only 13 here in the state of Illinois. Myself, one of my partners here at our firm, are also um, certified elder law attorneys as well. So
Well, Mallory,
we.
you don't look like you're very old at all. But I want to know what made you decide to become an elder law attorney.
Yeah, I get that question a lot. It's not a field of law that typically has a lot of younger attorneys in the field, but I knew I wanted to be a lawyer pretty much since the age of, I would say, probably around 10 or so. And then thought I always wanted to do family law. I knew I wanted to be, dealing with families, dealing with individual clients, but never even knew elder law was a thing till I went to college. I went to Miami of Ohio, which I think is the greatest school in all the land. And my senior year there, I was always really, really close with my grandparents. Very lucky I still have my mom's parents alive, and get to
Yes.
see them often and speak with them. And then my dad's parents have passed, but I was very close with them as well. My daughter is named after my grandma Vivian, who has passed, and was always kind of drawn to the aging population. I would volunteer in nursing homes, and so I took a gerontology class my senior year at Miami just as an elective. And when I was in that class, we read an article that was describing a couple, an older couple, and the husband had, I think, a stroke or some kind of major medical event, and ended up having really intense care costs that were very different than his wife. And in this article at that time, the only option that was available for them to be able to afford the care costs that he had while she was also still managing living at home and her own living expenses, was what's called a Medicaid divorce, so that he could essentially be determined to have no assets and qualify for Medicaid benefits. And they had been married for decades. It was obviously horrible for them. And I thought it was so sad that that is something that even exists. And that's the first time I learned about elder law. And I thought, oh my gosh, it was like, like it should have been a movie montage that there was like the
Yes.
clouds were parting, because I thought, oh, this is, of course, exactly the field of law that I'm supposed to be in. So from that minute on, that's my whole focus was go to law school to do elder law, and that's what I did. I went to law school, I focused in this, and I haven't looked back.
Well, help the third phase group here. Tell us exactly what elder law of care attorney does.
Yeah,
Or
so of course. So sometimes I kind of think of it as if you plan to age or you are aging
we're
or
all
have,
aging.
yeah, that's
We're
right,
all
that's right.
aging. I don't
I
care how
consider
old you
it
are.
job security, Lori. It's,
Yeah.
you're going to deal with things like death and taxes, and an elder law attorney is always going to be dealing with that. So,
Yes.
um, your aging process and legal issues that could come with that, or disabilities, and sometimes both. That is what an elder law attorney is going to help you navigate. So, any given day, my day could be including talking with clients about Medicaid, which I'm happy to talk about that a little bit more detail later as well. But dealing with Social Security questions and Medicare, talking with families about long-term care options. Aging is really expensive in our country, so
It's very
talking
expensive.
with yeah, talking with families, not just, a lot of times my clients aren't an elderly person. A
Hmm.
lot of times I'm talking with an adult child who's maybe the power of attorney for their parents. So I'm helping people with surrogate decision making, and how do I fill this role to help my parents or help my loved ones. Sometimes my day is working with parents of a child who was born with disabilities, and so we're talking about special needs planning, um, doing adult guardianships, dealing with probate and trusts and estate planning. So really any facet of life that could come your way as you're aging or planning for retirement or trying to navigate disabilities at any stage of life. And of course, sadly, dealing much more often with elder abuse, as which has become more and more prevalent. So that's
Yes, we hear
often a
more
major.
and more of that. In your practice, what aspect of elder law constitutes the largest part of what you do?
Yeah, so I'm a little bit unique in how I define my elder law practice. I think a lot of elder law attorneys, you meet an elder law attorney, and if they practice elder law,
Hmm.
most likely you are going to hear that their practice is much more transactional. So they're focused most likely in that long-term care space, estate planning and figuring out, nursing home placement and Medicaid. And I would say that's about half of my practice is in the transactional side and long-term care and disability planning.
Hmm.
The other half of my practice, which is a little bit unique, is heavily focused in litigation. So I do quite a bit of contested estates and contested guardianships, fiduciary litigation. So dealing with uh, sadly, a lot of financial exploitation and elder abuse cases. More often than not, powers of attorney who are abusing that role. So,
Hmm.
a lot of
Hmm.
times those are really ugly cases that are even sadder because it's usually a family member or loved one who's
Yeah.
doing the abusing. And also, Lori, death and money make people a little bit cuckoo. So
Yeah.
the minute there's somebody passes, the number of things that come out of the woodwork or traumas that the family has not, uh, those can really come to light in a will contest or, magical will that appeared the day before somebody passes away or something like that. So I do a lot of that kind of litigation, which keeps me on my toes. I feel
I
like I
can
should write a book
imagine.
someday.
I was gonna say that may be the next project for you at some point. Yes, yes.
You can't make it up. Some of these stories, we all, you have to, not ever, of course, making light of it, but sometimes you have to laugh or find it because you'll go crazy. Otherwise, my husband lovingly told me one day when I was a couple years into my practice that I've got to stop crying with every consult that I'm having because people are calling you for comfort, but also direction, not for you to cry with them. And I've done a better job, but some of these stories are pretty intense. So you got to find a way to
Oh,
see a
I
silver
can
lining.
imagine. I can only imagine. Okay, let's talk a little bit about specifics about planning for long-term care.
Yeah. So long-term care can be quite a bear to try to navigate. Like I said, the cost of aging is really, really expensive, and it's different in every state. So I know you're in Arkansas, I'm in Illinois, our state law on one another. But the fact of the matter remains that even though that's the truth, that the statutes are different, the
Hmm.
cost is still high, regardless of what state you're in.
Yes,
It's
yes.
expensive. And that's why I was saying earlier that I do a lot with Medicaid, and that sometimes is jarring for people to hear because I
Hmm.
think we think, well, Medicaid necessarily means that somebody is poor or they're at, a poverty level. And, that is true for some Medicaid benefits, but it's actually the most popular payer source for long-term care, nursing home expenses for our aging population. And that's because national averages are about 15 to $20,000 a month for private skilled nursing care. So the higher your care needs, skilled is the highest care level that you're going to be at,
Yes.
where you're getting
Hmm.
nursing care, medical care,
Right.
in the facility, and that is really, really expensive. And so, unless you're Bill Gates, I don't know a lot of people that can just comfortably withstand 20 grand a month for the rest of
Right.
their lives, especially like I was describing in that article that I read, especially if there's a spouse at home or other
Hmm.
expenses that you're trying to meet. And let's be honest, Medicaid doesn't anyway. So,
Okay.
if you're in a nursing home and you need Medicaid benefits to pay for that room and board, it's not going to pay for a wheelchair or hearing aids or
Hmm.
food, or a new, coat for winter or something like
Yes.
that. And so, it becomes really tricky to then navigate not only my client base that, you know, especially with the baby boomers
Hmm.
aging,
Hmm.
it this is not a group of the population that wants to, one, talk about their money or think about these sort of things happening, but then two, you know there's a lot of pride that's involved with this. And when I
Hmm.
say we need to maybe think about Medicaid for your wife or something like that, that's a huge issue for a population that spent their life working hard and trying to provide for their families and make sure that everybody was, taken care of, to now think they need to go on benefits to be able to pay for
Hmm.
some kind of care. That's really, really difficult to have that conversation for some people, but it becomes the reality. Otherwise, you end up in situations like the article where, both spouses are dealing with paying for care costs and trying not to have their mortgage foreclosed on at the same time because they're trying to
Right.
meet all their other expenses. So when I'm talking with families about this and how to navigate, what I'm always trying to do is not only get them to the end goal of we can figure out a way to qualify for these benefits so that we can actually pay for the care that you need, but also how do we also protect some of our hard earned money so that we don't lose our home, so that we don't
Hmm.
have nothing left to pay for maybe our supplemental expenses that Medicaid won't cover. Are we in a position where we can look to long-term care insurance or applying for that? Are
Hmm.
we in a position where we can do some, trusts, specific types of trusts, or other type of financial planning tools to try to set us both up, us being a married couple,
Hmm.
for the most success that we can, without spending every single dollar down to try to meet our care costs? And, you know, that that's an interesting conversation to navigate, especially if you're trying to do it on your own. I can't tell you how many times I've had clients come to me that were trying to essentially Google their way
Yeah.
into the answers. And reading on Medicare rules and Social Security rules and Medicaid rules is like reading gibberish when you try to look it up yourself. And
Yes.
really, it could, you get to a website, there's a bullet point of, okay, you need to have this much money or less to qualify for Medicaid and, have be this age or have this disability. And that looks really simple on the surface, but really it's the exceptions to these rules and the exceptions to the exceptions that allow for really creative planning and um, sometimes a lot of flexibility to help families meet their
Uh-huh.
goals
Uh-huh.
without feeling like they've just had to give up everything to try to just survive as long as possible.
Yeah, that's what we're seeing. A lot of that in this area.
Yeah,
People are just living longer. My
yeah,
mother, I was there this morning at her nursing home. She's 91
mhm,
years old,
yep,
and I had family members live to be 102.
yeah.
So you're looking at longer term care for a longer time, and this amount of money. It's staggering.
It's
About
unsustainable.
Yeah, what age would you recommend someone maybe start planning for long term care? Because I see with my mother, she has it, and if she didn't, we would have gone through what little money she had in no
Yeah.
time.
Yeah,
You know.
I know. I'm sorry that you guys are dealing with that too. I'm sure that that was really challenging. It's probably challenging still, but I'm sure it was really challenging at first too,
Very
and trying to
challenging.
just figure out what's best for her. And
Uh huh.
also, conversations I have all the time with clients is these are your golden years, so you should be able to age with dignity. And you don't want to see a loved one somewhere that's not comfortable or safe or clean or whatever it is. So it's a really sensitive thing to try to navigate. So I'm sorry that you're going through that. And I hope everybody's doing okay and that she's comfortable. Um, you know, honestly, the sooner the better. People laugh, but when I say get your powers of attorney and get your legal documents in place, I'm saying it to anybody who's 18 and older. Literally.
Really? Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I am under 40 and I have long-term care insurance. And now, of
Yes.
course, that's a product of what
Yeah.
I see every
Right.
single day. But you know what? Because of my age and my health, I'm telling you right now, the amount that I pay versus somebody who maybe is looking at that in their 50s or 60s is probably pretty dirt cheap in comparison. So the
Absolutely.
the sooner you can get these things in place, the better. Especially, I mean, long-term care insurance, of course, it's a huge help. Policies are, I mean, I always think long-term care insurance is like a fingerprint. No two policies are ever the same.
Yes,
But there's
that's
some
true.
there's some really, really great options out there. And because of the fact that, like what you said, people are getting the amount of the population that's getting older, plus the fact that people are living longer, there's the amount of out there are long-term care insurance options are just growing exponentially. But
Uh-huh.
I cannot say enough about the importance of having your documents in place, getting your estate planning documents in place, and especially getting your powers of attorney in place. And of course, this is a shameless plug, but having those done by an elder law attorney. The reason I say
Absolutely.
that is because, you know, there's a lot of estate planning attorneys out there in the world.
Uh-huh.
But I would say those that can do it with an eye toward long-term care. So when I do a power of attorney, for example, in Illinois, we have the luxury of being able to modify our power of attorney documents where the statute has a list of authorities that somebody can do. A power of attorney, just in case your audience doesn't know, there's a healthcare and a financial power of attorney. These are documents that allow you to name somebody to act for you during your life if you are in a position to not be able to make decisions for yourself, if you've lost capacity to make certain types of decisions. So most power of attorney documents, maybe 7 pages long. The power of attorney documents I draft are about 25 pages long because I'm there various provisions that I know will come in handy and help navigate long-term care as situations might arise, such as disability, such as needing Medicaid, such as maybe needing to enter into a care contract at home or in a facility, things like that, that other documents might not just include those on their surface, or somebody who doesn't practice with an eye toward this sort of field might not know. And having that stuff in place can be a huge game changer as well, because that can help families prevent the need for a guardianship, which is
Mm-hmm.
in court and expensive and requires an attorney and requires your entire life being public and decided by a judge, which is only going to add to the cost that you're trying to preserve for your care.
Right, absolutely. Leslie's asking, what's the best option for long-term care insurance?
Yeah, I saw Leslie's golden goose question here. So, Leslie, that's a really, really good question. And it's going to differ by state. What I would recommend, because I don't know that there's one best option, especially because of how different policies are these days. So it used to be you get like sometimes I'll get these, I consider them like the cream of the crop. You might get a John Hancock policy walks in the door, and it's got a huge benefit, daily payout, and never expires. And it's just like the best of the best and done in the 90s. And those just really aren't around anymore. What's really popular these days are kind of these hybrid policies where you
Mm-hmm.
have long-term care insurance mixed with kind of like a life insurance policy that allows also for a benefit. So, right, you've got your long-term care insurance daily benefit payout that the policy is supposed to allow when you need that type of care or payment, but it also has a beneficiary piece to it where if you didn't use it, you still could name a beneficiary to receive something, kind of like on a life insurance policy. Those aren't right for every person, but I would highly recommend talking with any kind of broker, and anybody, the big groups or more local shops.
Mm-hmm.
If they've got that kind of a policy, the hybrids can be really effective for people.
Hybrids. Okay.
Hybrid, yeah,
Hybrids
hybrid
policy. Is
long-term
it?
care insurance, life insurance kind
Yeah.
of hybrid policy.
Okay. Very interesting. I don't know that I've heard that term. Is there a checklist or something that you recommend?
So a checklist is a really uh, great idea. I have trouble figuring out, gosh, what should everything be? And I was thinking about this too, of what
Mm-hmm.
are, while we were talking about, what do you need to think about for long-term care? And
Yeah.
the number one thing I would say is get those legal documents in order. Do you have a will? Do you have a trust? And do you have powers of attorney? And then once you've figured out if you have those documents in order and in place, have you communicated? And I say this, I can't emphasize this enough. I think that I would have a job if more people communicated with each other.
Yeah.
I think,
Mm-hmm.
I think that you can see so many issues come up just from a lack of family communication or communication with your attorney. You I can think of, I don't even know how many examples of somebody walking in saying, my dad passed away and we're trying to find where all the stuff is, and we don't know where he kept everything, or he kept everything in the safe, but nobody has the combination to the safe. And so you're trying to now figure out, okay, not only did he not tell us how to get into the safe so we can even see the documents,
Mm-hmm.
but he never talked to anybody about the finances. So I don't even know what banks he banked at. Or, I don't know. Mom never handled any of that, because that's very common too with certain
Yes.
generations, for it to be kind of a gendered split on who handled what. And
Yes.
so communication is such a huge deal of, where is everything? What are your wishes? Does everybody know those are your wishes? Have you named a child as your power of attorney? And does that child know that you named them as the power
Yeah.
of attorney? And if you did, do they know what your wishes are? Because the common misconception that a power of attorney's job is to do what they think is best, it's actually your job to stand in the shoes of the person who's named you and make decisions the way they would if they could still make those decisions. And
Absolutely.
sometimes that doesn't agree with what you think is best.
Yes.
So I would say get those documents in order and then communicate. And then, you know, when we say communicate, I think you could create a list yourself of, sometimes you can call it a statement of intent or a list of what your long-term goals are. Um, I have an uncle, a great uncle, who uh, is extremely organized, and I've looked through his documents and made sure everything's copacetic for him and his family. And he has a whole list of, here's where all my passwords are, and here's where everything's located, and this person needs to
Wow.
go to this location. But you know what? The amount of headache that that's going to avoid in the future for him and for his family is incredible, because everybody knows exactly where everything is. There's no secret. There's no, oh, so
Wow.
and so got this and so got that. And I thought dad was going to give me this. It's not that. Everything is so clear, and he's communicated it, that they will not be spinning their wheels trying to figure out everything at the same time that you should be afforded the time to be able to mourn,
Yeah.
or, be able to figure out, what do we do now that somebody has disabilities that we never had this conversation with, and they can't remember, you know, what day it is
Yeah,
or
well,
what
my
their name
mother
is.
wouldn't be able to check her email right now. She would not know her password. At
I,
times, she has trouble navigating the TV.
of
So,
course, of
having all
course.
of this set up is so important.
I
Now,
agree. No.
I see Jane, which Jane is the one that introduced us.
Yes. Hi, Jane.
She has said that. See, what was her question? Is what if you don't qualify for long term care insurance or
Yeah.
can't afford it?
hmm Yeah. If you don't, and that's super, super common, because again, myself excluded, because of the nature of what I do,
Right.
most people don't even start thinking about this or about their own, morbidity, or their own ability to
It's
develop
just
a
not fun to
disability.
talk about.
It's not fun. It's not
No,
fun. The fact that I love my job is lucky, because these are tough conversations to have day in and day out. And frankly, you don't really think about this stuff until you start to reach an age where you need this sort of stuff, right?
and
So
that's when it's so expensive.
exactly, exactly. So to Jane's point, yeah, if you're 70 something and just now thinking about long-term care insurance, most likely it's cost prohibitive to even make sense at that point. And if that's the case, that's where I have to say, talk to an elder law attorney, because they're going to be able to give you an idea of, where am I meeting you in your life right now? Am I meeting you where you're 73 and healthy, you're retired, you're traveling, you're living your best life, and you've got a healthy estate, but that is a healthy estate for you to just enjoy retirement without unforeseen medical events happening?
Right,
Or am I meeting you at 75 and you're married and your husband was just diagnosed with Parkinson's, and we're thinking down the road of what the costs are going to look like for our family, and if our two-story home that we raised our family in are still going to be is still going to be an appropriate option, or is he going to need a facility someday eventually? And
right.
depending on, where I'm meeting you, as if I were your elder law attorney, depending on when I'm meeting you in life, is going to look different on how to figure out those assets. So it's not a good black and white answer to Jane's question, but sometimes it means we're doing some reconfiguring of your estate plan and your assets to be held in certain types of trusts or certain types of investments or vehicles to preserve assets for as long as we can. And sometimes we're looking at spending or making certain types of purchases, knowing that perhaps Medicaid likely is in the future, and maybe it's in the near future, or maybe it's far off in the distance, and we have some more flexibility, which is why I say the sooner you talk to somebody about these wishes and figuring this out, even if there's not something happening right now, right? Even if you're
Right,
not in
right,
crisis, the
right,
sooner you can talk about this stuff when you're not in crisis, the better, because the more options you're going to have.
right, right. Let's see. I have one more here I want to ask you. Okay, let's talk about us saving or protecting ourselves from online fraud, even. We've had an
Yeah.
incident here of a gentleman that I think got hit for maybe 60,000.
Yeah.
It is.
It's disgusting, frankly, and
Mhm.
I don't want to turn away your audience with such dark talk, Lori, but it's so bad right now. And it's getting worse, I think.
Mhm.
Technology has created umpteen billion different avenues for scammers and abusers
Uh-huh.
and wrongdoers to infiltrate and defraud our vulnerable population. And it's the aging population and those with disabilities, and some obviously
Mhm.
sometimes that's combined for some people, but
Right.
it's you see it in phone scams, you see it in online scams. I see it every single day. And like I said, the more common that abuse and scams and fraud that's happening is at the hands of loved ones and family members against their own family members, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Like I said, power of attorney abuse is so common, where somebody gets power of attorney for a family member and they think, oh, this is my blank check, this is my way to the bank. And
Wow.
that, if we're lucky, we catch up with that. I
Mhm.
can tell you a couple of war stories of cases. I had a case one time that we had to take all the way to trial, and it was in this situation, unfortunately, a mother, an elderly mother, who had power of attorney for her son, who served in Vietnam and became disabled while in service.
Mhm.
And he was in a facility, and she got his power of attorney, and she thought, this is just my chance. And she paid off her mortgage, she refurnished her house, she did whatever she wanted. She traveled, she took out cash. She gave money away. She did whatever she wanted with his money that was
Oh
never for
my.
him. And to the tune of, I think in that case, by the time it was all said and done, we had about $400,000
Oh my
judgment
God.
for her to
Mhm.
pay back. I had a case where a son got power of attorney for his mom, who had pretty advanced dementia, and he sent a $200,000 bet off to Las Vegas that he lost on a Super Bowl bet. And that money included her Holocaust survivor benefits that he also
Oh.
stole from her. So, money, like I said, money makes people crazy. And some of the things that I would suggest is try to educate those in your life, those especially aging loved ones. Don't click, and if you're on your computer, don't click on the ad. Don't open the
Yes.
email that you don't recognize. If you do open the email, don't click any links. None of your family is going to ask you to send them gift cards because they're
Right.
in some sort of emergency bind and need
Yes.
money from you. No one is going to do that. Your coworkers are not going to ask you for an emergency phone call to send you a PIN number for this, that, and the other.
Right.
Sometimes, and not every person is going to be savvy enough to see that, and that's okay, but you should be able to look at who the email is coming from. And
Mhm.
even if it says it's coming from Mallory Moreno, you could click on that and see that it's actually coming from Joe Schmo Nobody 1234 at
Mhm.
whatever.com. And it's just another way for scammers to trick you. Um, Phone calls. The IRS is never going to call you to pay a bill. They
Right.
don't make phone
Well,
calls.
most people don't at all anyway
Yes,
make the phone
yes.
call. It's
But
it's through
having
the mail.
Yes, having unsubscribing from ads if you can, or spam mail, helping a family member unsubscribe to things is a huge help. Um, you know, asking for setting up, like I said, that getting those powers of attorney in place can be a huge help.
Mhm.
If your loved one is comfortable with it and they still have the capacity to do this, maybe setting up a second set of verification on transactions. So if you're going to make a
Mhm.
large transaction, maybe have a trusted financial advisor or your power of attorney family member on the account to be able to say, oh, mom doesn't usually pull out $1,500 at a time from the ATM.
Right.
Now I've got an alert, and we're asking, what was that
Mhm.
for? Was it
We're
legitimate or
seeing
not?
the banks step up in cases like
Yeah.
that when they're seeing things like that. Kind
Yes.
of being a watchdog, which having a good bank is essential as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if
Yeah.
you have a power of attorney, give a copy of it to your banker. Give
Yeah.
a copy of it so they
Yeah.
know who
Yeah.
are the people that this person trusts. And
Hmm.
the banks, some states Illinois does not have this yet. Some states have contemplated or even enacted legislation to make certain professions like bankers mandatory reporters for when they think that there's fraud or elder abuse,
Right.
or
Right.
reporting requirements. But it never hurts to have as many of those protections in place as possible. If you've named somebody that you trust as your power of attorney, let them see your financial statements.
Well,
You know,
yes, definitely.
the the can the tricky part, auto bills, setting up auto payments for your
Uh-huh.
bills,
Yes.
another really good way to
Yes,
avoid
I've done that
any
for my
issues.
mother. And
Yep.
then we check the statements monthly. So again,
Yep.
it's communication. It's
Yep.
communication with our parents, on what to watch for, and but a lot of times I know we have a lot of people that have retired here and their children are not even here,
Right.
and that's what
Well,
happened to this elderly guy here.
mhm.
He didn't have any family here to say don't do this, or
Yes.
and he did it so quickly, and it's hard to trace.
And that's the thing is, with going to the back to the communication is, when you have a family member who's fallen victim to this, and this is also generational, it is embarrassing. That if
Yeah.
somebody falls victim and they have capacity still, but they still
Hmm.
fell victim to this, nobody wants to admit that they've done that they've given this money
Oh,
away, that
yeah.
they got taken for a ride or
Yes.
scammed. They don't want
Hmm.
to talk about their finances anyway, let alone admit that they made some kind of mistake or error or lapse
Right.
in judgment. And so the more you can communicate about it now and saying, look, you don't have to feel stupid. This is
Right.
so common. These phone calls are coming in all the time. These text messages, these emails, this stuff is happening all the time, and they make it sound really, really real. I had a client who got scammed because they got a phone call where this person, the scammer was so sophisticated that they were able to take a voice sampling of a family member,
Hmm.
create a recording of the family member saying that they were in jail and needed to be bailed out,
Yeah.
and then called the client and had that recording playing so the client even knew the voice and sent the money. So it's the sophistication level is so high that the more we can communicate and make sure it's clear that this is not something to be ashamed about, it's just something that you need to be aware that could happen.
Aware of.
No one's ever going to call you in a sweepstakes saying, if you send me your social security check, we'll send you 10 times that amount as a
Yeah.
prize. That's never
Yeah.
going to happen. Never.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
happening. But if it does happen, Lori, like you said, it happens so fast. If it does, call immediately as fast as you can. I would say make a police report, call an attorney, because that attorney might be able to get into court on an emergency basis and freeze accounts.
Hmm.
Consider freezing your credit, calling your credit card companies and making a fraud report, call the bank, see if you can stop.
Oh, I've lost you. I lost the
Can you
sound.
can you see me?
Yes, I can
Can
see
you
you,
hear
but
me?
I can't hear you. Can you hear
You
me
can't
okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me
Oh,
now?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It's like the
I was
sound died
making
there for a minute.
I was making too many hand gestures, and so a little message popped up basically
Oh,
telling
okay.
me to chill out.
Okay. To our end of our time here, and
Yep.
gosh, we could go on forever and ever,
We
and
could,
we
we
may have to
could.
come up with another topic to and get back to each other again. But any parting wisdom for anyone helping an aging parent or loved one?
You don't have to do it alone. Use the resources that are available to you. Reach out, have a team. Don't try to shoulder it all, because we don't know everything. So it's tough, but there are options. And of course, I'm going to shamelessly say, an elder law attorney can really help with it, but there are options. So don't feel like you're completely alone in it.
All right, Mallory, thank you so very much for being
Thank
here.
you. It was
And if
so
you
so nice.
we maybe get circling back around with other issues about the elder law. So we really appreciate your input here and joining
Yeah.
us today. And
Well,
how
thank
does
you.
people get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can reach me on my email. It's like Mallory Moreno, Moreno at Chuhak. It's CHUHAK.com. You can reach out to me there. Or my phone number is 312-855-4317. You'll also see me on Instagram here, and I'm on LinkedIn as well, with Mallory Moreno.
Okay, very good, Mallory. We
Thank
appreciate
you,
you so
Lori.
much being here, and I've got a few final words to say as well. I go live each and every Tuesday on Instagram Live. I have inspiring guests like Mallory, and I also will have an email that goes out every week after the interview, kind of giving my little lowdown on what we talked about and high points and things like that. So anyone can go and sign up to my private Facebook group, which is called The Third Phase with the number three, The Third Phase groups slash, or it's Facebook group, Facebook/group/ the third phase. That way you can be getting the emails. You get on there and get on my email list, and we will send you any information and any checklist, and I will add all of your contact to that email as well. So I'd love you to join our third phase Facebook group as well. So Mallory, thank you again, and
Thank
we'll
you,
be in
Lori.
touch. Bye
All right.
bye.
Thank you. Take care.
You too. Bye bye.